Hello. If you're doing the weekly advanced revision, what you'll need is the links to the practice videos if you need them, and the links to the actual resources themselves. So you've gone through all of the videos for the advanced spreadsheets ICDL qualification, or you're going through it step by step. So what you can do is you can go through the weekly revision step by step or all in one go. It's entirely up to you. So what you're doing is making sure that even though you've watched the videos, you're actually learning what's going on. You're not just watching them. That's not enough for some people to actually be able to reproduce that task in something else. So you need to practice it. So this will give the opportunity to practice it. If you've paid for this course, you'll be sent these links and able to get in on YouTube. If you're a university staff or student, you'll be able to get on as well. So this is really to back up what you're learning. The other thing is you may not want to do the weekly revision. You might take some of the tasks that you've been looking at with regard to the video-based learning, and you may just go straight ahead and apply them to whatever it is that you need to do. Entirely up to you. They're here to use whichever way you wish, and hopefully they'll be clearing up a few things with regard to the exam. The paper we need is the Advanced Spreadsheets Weekly Revision, if you've not used it before. There have been a couple of videos created for the first 2 weeks, 2 and 3, and then we're going to start this series of videos with week 4. And like I said, questions 20 to 28. The files you need, as before, if you've done it before, if not, you need to make sure that you've got the spreadsheets weekly revision work files so that they work with the paper. Otherwise, you won't find what you're looking for, or it won't work. So make sure you're using those ones and not the pre-online ones or the manual ones. So they are particular. So if we look at the first question that we're going to do, question 20, we're in the revision workbook. A lot goes on in that. And we're going to the car data worksheet and doing a simultaneous sort with the data descending order by make, model, and then sort price from the most expensive to the cheapest. Okay, so let's go into our revision workbook. And we're going to find the car data worksheet. And there it is. Okay, so we click in the data. Remember, we're going to go to our sort, and we're going to go to custom sort, because that way we can do these multiple areas. All right, you can see that it's come up with column F. If I tick my data has headings, then it's still not working. So that suggests that I could either carry on and do what I'm doing, or I could cancel this and I can make sure that I do highlight all of the data. So different things can happen. Sometimes you click in data, it doesn't always do what you want. This way, I can see the headings. If that's on. If it's off, I wouldn't, but it's because I've highlighted the exact data, including the headings. So the first thing we're going to do a sort on is the make, pretty much like we did in the demonstration. And that's going to be descending, add a level, and we're going to do it by model. That's also descending. And the final one, we're going to do it by price, which is a numerical field, and it wants it by the largest to smallest. Okay, if we OK, you can see the data's changed quite a lot. Looks like it's worked to a certain extent. And pretty straightforward. We're going to move on now to the next question, and we need to go to the date worksheet. So let's have a look at the question. Question 21. In the date worksheet, perform a custom sort on the cell range A2 to B30 by date in calendar order Jan, Feb, March, etc. So I'm going to remember it's a custom sort, not just a sort. So let's click in here in the data and we're going to the sort and custom sort. So the area that we are custom sorting is the date. So I'll make sure I've got my date here. And it wants us to go into the custom list, and I'm looking for a Jan Feb, and there's one there. So it looks like I've got it set up ready to go. That's good. If I OK, and then I OK again, it's definitely there. Definitely got the right header, and then it's done it. If you scroll down, it's done it automatically. So that's question 21. Company invoice next. Let's see what we need to do with this one. Let's look at the question. So question 22. On the company invoice worksheet, filter the cell range A1 to G10 so that only the company Smith & Co are visible. And then the next part is to select the cell range C14 to C22 and create a custom number format that displays the text IV hyphen in front of the specified range. Okay, so let's do the first one. So we've got the company invoice worksheet here, and A1 is A1 to G10. That's the data range there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to click on here, take all of those off, Smith & Co on, OK, and we're just filtering so that they're the only ones that are visible. With regard to the data range here, it selects data range C14 to C22, this one here. I remember this a little time ago, we had this format cells. We went into custom numbering, so we're on the numbering and into custom. And across the general, we typed in this case, IV hyphen, followed by a 0, because they're all whole numbers that are in the data range. But remember, in order to make it work, we have to wrap the IV and the hyphen as they are letters, characters, or something that isn't data, basically, so that it accepts it in the cell alongside the number. So we're OK then, it's worked, happy days. So now we can move on to the next question. So back to our paper. And question 23 is to do with lists. So in section 12, we've got the area of lists that we're going to look at. And this one, it's asking us to use the SIC worksheet, apply an advanced filter on the cell range A7 to D30. So only the administration department in which the staff absent was more than 2 days is visible. So the staff that were absent more than 2 days is visible. Ensure the records that meet these criteria are copied into another location starting at A33. So into the SIC. If I'm going to use an advanced filter, which I'm suggesting it probably is, I'm going to copy the headings and place them up here. Escape, so that hash comes off. I've got my range of criteria, so it's administration is the department, and the staff absence, that's more than, so more than 2. So I'll click in my data tab, advanced filter. And I sort of know it's an advanced filter because it's also asking me to extract the information somewhere else. So that's one of the features of advanced filters. So the criteria is here. We've already picked up our data in the first one. I'm going to copy it to D33. I'm going to OK. And then what should happen is it filters everything above 2 with regard to absence for the administration department. Okay, so that wasn't too difficult. Sounds a lot more than it is. It's just keeping your head and doing things methodically. We're on the personnel sheet next. And I'm just going to go to the paper and let's have a look and see what we need to do here. So question 24. This worksheet, personnel worksheet, use a menu command to subtotal by average the staff age after each change in department in the cell range D2 to D20. So menu command subtotal, that gives me a hint of what I'm doing. So I'm going to click in my data. On my data tab, I know I've got a subtotal feature. I know it does things by functions and stuff. So I just follow the information. Each change is by department. The function is going to be an average, and its age already ticked. So I'm going to OK, and it's done what I thought it should do. So we're on question 25. We're going to be using the subtotal worksheet. Let's have a look at the question. So on the subtotal worksheet, expand the subtotal data so the age, average, and max grand totals and subtotals are all displayed. So minimize that, go to the 3, drop that down, and there you go, done. If you're not sure, you can click along until you find the one before you hit answer, and that's absolutely fine. So that takes us now to the survey results, and we're going to have a look back at the question. So we're now on the section 13 of pivot tables, and question 26 is asking us to use the survey results worksheet, create a pivot table with the data range in there, and create the pivot table starting at K5 to show the town as row labels, sex as column labels, reply field as report field, and the age data to average. And then we'll have a look at this second part. So let's do the first part first. So the first thing to do is click in the data. Remember, your pivot table is in the Insert tab, and it's just there. We've got the correct data. I know it ends at 225 because I read it on the question. We're going to pop it into the existing worksheet, and it wants it in K5, which we can just type in. And there we go. So we've got to follow the instructions, which is row town in the row label, and the sex column, sex field in the column, and reply field is going into the report filter. And then the last thing is the age, which goes into the values. And we need to make sure going into the value field settings that we change that to average. Okay, that's that bit done. The second part of the question. Continuing with this worksheet, the survey results, change the data entry in F6 from Newcastle to Durham and make sure that the chart, pivot table chart, if you like, or table reflects it. So F6 is there. I'm going to copy Durham. I'm going to paste on Newcastle. Make my life easier. Escape. And then I'm going to right click on the pivot table, not on the data, and I'm going to refresh. And it just did a quick change there. So that's that one done. The next question is going to be using the pivot table sheet. So I'm just going to scroll up, see what we've got, and let's go to the question and see what it's asking us to do. So we've got a pivot table worksheet where a pivot table starting at G5, it wants us to sort the age in ascending order. Let's do these one at a time. So the age in here is going to be sorted into ascending order. That's done. And back to the question. The next pivot table we're working on starts at G8, and we've got to show the sex field along the rows and the town in the filter field. So let's do that one. So this table here, it wants the town in there and the sex field in there. And we've done that. So the final part on the G28, check the question just to make sure. Filter the pivot table begin at G28 so that Bristol and Washington details do not display. So we'll drop that down there. Take out
Washington's at the end, and Bristol there, and OK. So notice how it's got me doing different things to different pivot tables. So they do this in the exam. So make sure when you do this that you do those correctly and on the right pivot table, very important. The final question, 28, is on the pivot worksheet, manually group South Shields, Tynemouth, and rename that group as Region C. So the pivot table here, let's just drop these down so you can see the data fields. Now click on South Shields, Control, click on Tynemouth, right click, Group, and then call that group Region C and enter. So that's all of those questions ending at 28. So that's all the questions ending for week 4, questions 20 to 28. So now I'll be doing the next series that's coming up with regard to the lectures, and it's going to be section 5, which is functions. Okay, so you may join me on functions, and I'll follow that up with a weekly revision demonstration exercise as well. So hopefully see you there. Thank you.
Hello. If you're doing the weekly advanced revision, what you'll need is the links to the practice videos if you need them, and the links to the actual resources themselves. So you've gone through all of the videos for the advanced spreadsheets ICDL qualification, or you're going through it step by step. So what you can do is you can go through the weekly revision step by step or all in one go. It's entirely up to you. So what you're doing is making sure that even though you've watched the videos, you're actually learning what's going on. You're not just watching them. That's not enough for some people to actually be able to reproduce that task in something else. So you need to practice it. So this will give the opportunity to practice it. If you've paid for this course, you'll be sent these links and able to get in on YouTube. If you're a university staff or student, you'll be able to get on as well. So this is really to back up what you're learning. The other thing is you may not want to do the weekly revision. You might take some of the tasks that you've been looking at with regard to the video-based learning, and you may just go straight ahead and apply them to whatever it is that you need to do. Entirely up to you. They're here to use whichever way you wish, and hopefully they'll be clearing up a few things with regard to the exam if that's what you're going for. Okay, thank you very much. So the first one we're going to look at, let's have a look at the question paper itself first. You can see that we're going to start on question 29, but just check you've got the right paper. This is what it should be saying at the top. I've already done a series weekly revision for week 2, week 3 and week 4. So now we're starting at week 5. So 29, question 29, it's using the VAT worksheet. So I'm assuming we're still in the revision paper workbook. That's where we're finding all these different tabs. So we're going to use that worksheet. We're going to add a function in A1 to enter today's date and time. We're going to add a function in A6 to show the year number from cell D6 and copy it through. Add a function in B6 to show the month, using a function for that, and from D6 again and copy that through. And finally add a function in J16 to count the number of invoices not yet paid. Okay, so using the revision workbook again, we're on VAT sheet, and in the first part of the question 29, we needed to put in a automatic today's date and time, which would be a now. Double click, close off brackets and enter, and that will deal with that one. In A6, the question, first part of the question asked us to draw out the year from D6, so use a function that does that. So on to D6, close brackets and enter.
And remember, a double click will go to the next available space. And if we go back to the question, it wants us to do in B6, wants us to extract the month from D6. So let's go in there, the month function will do that for us. Double click, click on D6, close. Nice easy functions to start with. Double click and drop those down. Okay, the last part of this is add a function in J16. So I'm just going to click in there and we'll double check with the question. So add a function in cell J16 to count the number of invoices not yet paid. So in here, so it's going to be a count. I've worked that one out. And it's a count if, because it's got a criteria that it wants to meet. It's going to be this data range here, because this is the one where we're looking to see if they've yet paid, so payment received. We're going to use a comma, and then we're going to think about what could we put in there that counts those areas that are not yes, and that's the clue there. So remember speech marks when you're using chevrons, we need the not sign, which the chevrons opposite each other, and then we're going to have the yes itself, and then wrap that also. So the chevrons and the yes has to be wrapped as characters, text, or letters. And then we can close it off, enter it in, and we get 4. And then if I put a no in, I still stay the same, so I'm not upsetting anything, okay? If we wanted to do it the different way, you want to do it with the insert function, type in the countif as we did before, bring up your insert function, there's your range, and then you've just got to put the chevrons in and the yes, because it will fix the speech marks for you. And okay. Remember, click out of a cell that's active that you've just worked on in the exam, because you can throw an error up. You would in the real world too before you move around and save things. So, just make sure that you've finalised that cell. Okay, we're moving on to question 30 using the VLOOKUP tab. Back to the question. Okay, in the VLOOKUP worksheet and in F4, use a lookup function to find the discount rate based on the number bought in D4, and then copy that formula down from F4 to cells F5 to F6. So this is where we are, D4. We have a table here, a vertical table, and part of the clue is in the question as well, which won't be quite like that in the exam. It'll just say use a lookup. So we know we're going to use a VLOOKUP. And the sheet says lookup as well with a V. Okay, so we've got our VLOOKUP. We've got our first instance. We've got our comma. We come down and we pick up our table of array. We absolute immediately with an F4 function key. We type in a comma, and the column index number is 1, 2. It's 2 because we're looking for discount wherever it's placed on the sheet. So we need a 2, close it up, enter, and then you can autofill. Before we do that, now let's do it another way. Equal VLOOKUP, insert function arguments, so you can see what we're doing. I need to be over here actually, so I can do the first instance. The table of array, and remember F4 function key to absolute it, and then make sure you do click down in the next one. 1, 2, pop in the 2, no need for false, doesn't need it in this exam, and then autofill down. Okay, nice, straightforward. Next tab is company. Okay, so let's go back to our questions 31. So in the company worksheet, use the data in the cell range G6 to G14 only to calculate the number of invoices under 500 and put it in 17. Do it a bit at a time. So we're going into G17. We know we're going to count because it says number of. We know we've got criteria. And so we could put, there's our data, the invoices, and our criteria is below 500. I'm double checking with myself that's correct, and okay. So remember, if you type it in, you have to put speech marks in because you're using the less than chevron. Okay, that's the reason behind that. Escape. Let's look at the next part of the question. Looks like it's a summing of something if it meets criteria, so I'm starting to think it might be a sum if. Okay, so in G18, use data in cell range D6 to D14 to calculate the sum of the invoices for the company Smith & Co. So only for those, right? So it's an adding up again if it meets the right criteria. So we know it's a sum if. I'll bring up the FX. So the first thing is the range. Now we know it's based on this range here, as it says in the question. And the people that we want, the criteria we want for Smith & Co, click on there. And then the range we're going to add up, we're going to sum, are the invoices. So we're going to highlight that range for the invoices. Oops, made a mistake there. Remember, easily done. You've got to make sure that you move your cursor to the next one and then pick up your range. So if you see that you do anything along the way, it's not a big deal. You're human, you'll make errors. But if you do, remember you can click around, you can change things, you can edit things, all before you hit that answer button in the test. And then you move on. Once it's answered, it's answered. Okay, so if we okay that, we've got Smith & Co. total invoices only, which is what we wanted. Final part of the question is in H18, add a function to round the figure in cell G18 down to no decimal places. So remember, no round, only round up or round down, and we're doing a round down on this one. We're applying it to G18, and we're doing it by no decimal places. It's quite easy to type in. And yes, that's worked because it's dropped the 0.41 from the answer. So we rounded it down. Okay, lovely. So I'm going to just click on the rank sheet and then we're going to have a look at the question again for this one. So on the ranking worksheet, add a function in H6 that will rank the number in cell A6 from highest to lowest, relative to the cell range A6 to A14. Okay, and copy the function down. Right, so in here we're going to go equal rank. I know that I can't use a rank ordinary rank, so I have to use rank EQ because I'm in MS 2016. I'm going to go to the FX. So the number that it's told me to look for with the ranking question is A6 here. The reference is the range that it sits within, so that's our range where A6 sits. Would I absolute? Absolutely, because I'm going to autofill it down, which means this will move down as well. So I've absoluted it. I click on the order and it tells me which one is descending. So ranking descending equals 0. It wants highest to lowest. So I'm quite happy with that, the 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to OK, double click, and there you go. Just as a demo, just to remind you, if you don't absolute that, take it back to relative by keep tapping and enter. First one works, but you will see green arrows appear on the other ones because if I double click, it means the range has moved. It's not stayed absolutely static or stand still. Okay, right, so we're now moving on to the next question.